Hi, and welcome to Tennis Volley Talk with Brian Danielson. Hey, this episode today, I'm going to be doing an over the phone interview again with a guest that I've had on in-house for, and also I've called before. And me and him have played tennis a few times, he's been having the upper hand lately, and I just haven't been able to hit very well against him, but I'm getting there. But anyway, with my broken arm, I've had a little bit of time that I haven't played, so it's kind of one of those things that happens. But Rob Small, thank you for joining me on Tennis Volley Talk today.
Absolutely, Brian. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, no, it's always fun whenever we can get to talk tennis and everything. Definitely. So anyway, what I'm going to cover a little bit here is the results of the wonderful men's final in the French Open between Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz, which was an amazing final in a par final and no drop in tennis at all in 5 sets in almost 5.5 hour tennis match.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one for the ages for sure.
It definitely was, and to actually, I mean, not to have anybody have a medical timeout or a bathroom break or anything in that 5.5 hours of just nothing but pure upper level tennis the whole time.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you ask Alcaraz, his didn't kick in until about the 3rd set.
That's true.
But Sinner definitely had it for all 5 sets. And then, like you said, no bathroom breaks, no medical timeouts, nothing. It was just pure tennis for 5.5 hours. And I think what it shows, too, is it's 2 very fit guys that are definitely in their prime. That helps out a
lot. That really is, and now you have like Jannik Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz, 1 and 2, 2 and 1. Either one of them can be 1 and 2 at any one point in time, anytime. And then plus you have Novak Djokovic that's still coming into Wimbledon, may have a chance to still win one. But he's kind of now, more or less the distant third out of everybody because of the fact that he is his age at 38, almost 39, going on 39, but still playing a very top level tennis and can beat most anybody out there anyway.
Absolutely, as we saw at the French Open in the quarterfinals against Zverev, which he was last year's finalist, and he was up 2-1 against Alcaraz. So, it's kind of a tough one with Zverev because, about 2-3 years ago when Novak was starting to get, kind of up there in age, he had that great year in 23, but then in 24 he kind of dropped off, and we were wondering, okay, Nadal's kind of on his way out, Djokovic is getting older, Federer's done. Who's going to be that guy? And I think a lot of people thought, well, here's Zverev's chance. And then all of a sudden now here comes Sinner and Alcaraz to kind of take it. Djokovic at Wimbledon, like you said, I agree. I think it's Alcaraz because he is the 2-time defending champion. I think it's Sinner who's playing out of his mind. And then it's Djokovic on grass. He has a definite chance, but he is in distant third if you were to do the Vegas odds right now for sure. And then there's that group of Zverev and Casper Ruud and Holger Rune and all those guys. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, not just this tournament or, just the end of the finish of this year, but, the next couple of years. And see, can anyone get up there with those 2?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And with that, just to kind of give everybody the insight of how that 5-set went, Sinner won the first 2 sets, 6-4, 7-6. And then right about the middle of the 3rd set, Alcaraz decided to go, okay, no more. And he ended up pulling it out 6-4 or 4-6, 6-7, 6-7. And he ends up winning it in the last 3 sets. From the middle of the 3rd set, it just was like phenomenal tennis. with both of them, not giving an inch with anybody.
No, and for Alcaraz to be serving at 3-5, love 40, down 2 sets to love. I mean, for him to come back from that, and not only that, but my doubles partner and I, Darren, were talking. Not only did he save 3 championship points down, then he had the changeover, and then he had to think about, okay, that was a great save. I saved 3 championship points, but now I have to break center just to, have it get leveled to 5-all to try to get the upper advantage to go up to 6-5, but you're still 2 sets down.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And he's definitely got, in my opinion, and you can see it, he's from Spain, so clearly he loves Rafael Nadal, and that was probably one of his tennis idols growing up.
Oh, I'm sure.
How could it not be?
Mm-hmm.
And he's got that never give up attitude and that never say die. Some people talk about, I'll never give up, but then you can kind of see it in their body language, or maybe they just don't try as hard. I remember several years ago, I was watching a documentary about Pete Sampras, and he made the, I believe it was the U.S. Open of '92 where he played Stefan Edberg, and you could tell in his body, and he even said years later, he goes, I didn't dig deep. I just played. And you see that from some people when they start to get down, especially the younger guys in the championship. You're like, I got a lot of opportunities. This is just one that didn't go my way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
He wasn't doing that at all. And his game, and there was a couple, that hit the line, and, he's an inch or 2 away from not being the back-to-back French Open champion.
Oh, sure.
And he just never gave up. And even after he broke him, then he has to break center, which is always easy.
No big feat.
Yeah, exactly. And then that was just to draw that set level, but still down, 2 sets to love, and then to come back. He's an unbelievable fighter. He's a champion. Somebody else said it. He's a mixture of like Rafa and Federer. So he's like Fudal, they call it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm seeing it.
Oh, absolutely. And through that whole match to actually have the sportsmanship between the two of them, because several times the ball was called out or it was called in, and either Alcaraz or Sinner came up, looked at them and said, no, it was in, and then gave the point to the other guy. And that's just phenomenal in today's game to see such sportsmanship in such a heated and well played final as long as that was.
Absolutely. That a great call out on that too, because I think it's great when people are playing so high level, and of course they each want to take home that Roland Garros trophy. Sinner for the first time, would have been if he had taken it home, and Alcaraz was definitely trying to repeat. And in that moment, at that level, to try to, to look at the ball mark, and, because in the past, like, you look at the 80s and 90s, some of those guys very disliked each other, very much disliked each other. And
let me see. Let me see. Could have been Connors and McEnroe may not have had a love for each other, I don't think.
I don't think Connors would have went up to that ball mark and said, yeah, that's good. You won the point. Good job, John.
Yeah, I know. not for another $1 million. I don't think he would have either.
Nope. Maybe with Borg, though.
Yeah, Borg, yeah.
McEnroe was the way he was. He was never like that with Borg.
Yeah, no, he wasn't. He wasn't as fiery.
Fire and ice.
Yeah.
But yeah, to be cordial and to be, very fair, and I think I love that too. Randy Ronning, the Elk River tennis coach that we know and love.
Oh yeah.
He always says, if you're not sure, give it to your opponent. And if they were calling their own lines, I guarantee you they would have gotten them all correctly.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Absolutely. And now I think this is the last year that they actually had line people at the French Open, because I think next year is going to be the automatic line call, because they had it through some of the French or some of the red clay tournaments this year, the automatic line call. calls. And now next year, I think it's going to be all automatic for anybody. So all the lines people are out of a job now.
Well, I mean, that's too bad for them.
Yeah.
Hopefully what they could do is, go back to like, I know some of those qualifiers, you call your own lines, maybe they could go to them, or I don't know, maybe they're more needed in college kind of level tennis around the world. It is too bad, but at the same time, how many matches would have been changed if we had that system 20 years ago, 30 years ago?
Absolutely. With the serve and the Cyclops with Ili Nasasi at French or Wimbledon or anything, and going down, kneeling down, looking into the Cyclops and going, is that really working? That ball was out, not in, and stuff like that. It just but then the progression of everything that came in what, it was about a year ago that they introduced the automatic line calling, but it did speed the game up a little bit, and it did eliminate a lot of the yeah, come on, that was in, it was in, no, it was out, and then they zoom in with the cameras and all the stuff going on, and by millimeters you can see the space that it was out and not in.
Right, and I like it now too, because if they challenge or anything, like, it happens laser quick, and I really appreciate that. It's not going to slow the game down, I don't think. And you want, at the end of the day, you look at it all, you want the call to be correct, whether it's for your person or maybe you don't like the person, whatever it matters. You want everything to be judged fairly. You want it to be called fairly. I wish all sports would do kind of like that, whether it's fair foul, maybe put that in the fair foul poles and down the lines and stuff in baseball. And, it's probably harder to do in certain sports. Football would be another cool one.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe, and who knows, maybe with this, we might go to football and say, nope, the sensor shows your foot touched the white chalk.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. And then, back in the end zones, everything. So hopefully this doesn't just stop at tennis. At the end of the day, instant replay, how many times, have we been watching instant replay, or have we been watching, other sports, and they got the call wrong. Then they go review it and they can't overturn the call, and they still get it wrong.
Yeah.
I love this for tennis. I think it's great. Yes, those linesmen are out of jobs. That's unfortunate. Maybe they can become head umpires or something.
Oh, sure.
Or be distributed into the junior ranks or something. And but this is great. I like it. They're going to get the call correct.
Well, yeah, and you do know that even for us hackers out there, they actually do have the little machine that's, I think they have it for what, $250 or whatever. You can hook it up and it does call the lines for you if you want to.
That's awesome.
For us hackers,
I wouldn't. There's been a few matches I've played where I would love to challenge my opponent's calls, but that's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. It's like the apparatus that you can get, and then you hook it up to the net post, and then it kind of makes a scan of like the whole court kind of, and then it just automatically, and it will call, and it will give you a red light or a green light and beep, if it's in or out. And then if it beeps, is it a red or green? And if it's green, it was in. Red, it was out.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it really is. But sometimes to spend $250 just to have it for a little bit, who knows? But it'd be cool to have, just to have.
Absolutely. I mean, to be able to have your own Hawkeye,
yeah,
in a USTA match or a tournament match, or even if you're just playing at a local club or something, that'd be great. Because if you get a person that's hooking you. That would be great to hook up and say, well, we'll just see what this says.
Oh, absolutely. Hook it up, and then boom, it's a line calling, which is really kind of nice for us hackers out there. If we really want to do that, be kind of fun to have, and just do it for a few matches and see how the person that thinks the ball's out when you think it's really in. See how that would calm their calls down maybe a little bit.
I agree. Yeah, and if you two can't agree, because how many times have we done that? Did you see it out? Too close to call. Let's just let's just let Hawkeye do it.
Yeah, let's let Hawkeye do it, and everything. And with that too, we can't go without saying we finally had the USA winner in French Open 2, name of Coco Gauff, that beating Arena Sabalenka, of all things, in 3 sets, 7-6, 2-6, 4-6. But boy, she played some good tennis against Sabalenka, and then the more she got the ball in, the more Sabalenka got frustrated, which she tends to do once people start getting the ball back on her power, though, too.
Yeah, it's almost like Sabalenka kind of has that mindset and that temperament of like, how dare you?
Mm-hmm.
That's such a good, powerful shot. How are you even returning this and making me hit a second, third, fourth extra shot just to win 1 point?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I thought Gauff played tremendous. I thought she, first of all, there's 2 things that really stood out to me in that match. Her athleticism, tracking down so many balls that maybe just a lot of other women can't do. And she's almost, I hate to call her this because I think she's better than that, but she was almost in that match like the ultimate backboard.
Oh, gosh,
she got her back, pushed her around.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And she's so fast anyway. I mean, she got to a lot of Sabalenka's drop shots that usually a lot of the girls out there don't get to. And she's getting to them. And not only getting to them, but hitting winners off of the drop shot.
That's the thing too. That's why I said I didn't want to give her a discredit, because Coco, not only, like I said, she moved around and was the ultimate backboard, but then she would just take that one shot and just put it in a tough spot, or hit a winner. And I also think the conditions, Sabalenka brought that up in her post-match interview that they do at the French Open, which, by the way, I love. Wimbledon does it.
Oh, yeah.
U.S. Open, I think, should kind of take note and get a little better at that. It's almost like a really quick one. I remember back in the days when Dick Enberg would do it on CBS, they would bring out all the American flags and then the 2 flags represented by the combatants, and then they would say, "Here's your trophy. Let's say a few words." I remember one time when Juan Martín del Potro won it, he said, "Can I say a few words in Spanish?" And they kind of didn't really want him to because they were on such a time crunch. And they asked again, and then they said very quickly, Juan wants to say a few words in Spanish. And he did. And then it was like, okay, thanks, Juan, and boom, that's over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, then it's over.
I love it because they let Coco go off, hold up that trophy high, because that's an ultimate moment for her. And for even Nadal, whether it's 1 or 14, it's still an amazing achievement, and it should be celebrated.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What I noticed too in the post-match interview was how disappointed and frustrated and upset Sabalenka was. She even told her team, I can't remember word for word, but she basically said, "Sorry for the crappy tennis." And I mean, okay, Sabalenka, if that's your worst, I think you're doing pretty dang good.
Oh, that's absolutely correct, and stuff, and with that, it was really kind of she don't know. It must have been it really kind of a little bit of poor choice of words of what she said, because usually she's not that way even though the conditions may have been windy. So what? It's windy. You got to play in it. You got to adjust. It's the game. You got to learn to love the wind also, not just this calm, beautiful day out there. And she, may have been a little off, and usually she's not that way. She's usually pretty gracious, though.
Absolutely, and she gave Coco her due. She did do that. She said, "You were better than me today." And then she said, "I'm sorry for the conditions, and I'm sorry for the bad tennis I played in the final." And, I'm glad she praised Coco, but I will say this. if Sabalenka, I believe, is playing her A+ game, I think she beats everybody in the world.
Oh yeah, darn near. I mean, she just has such a massive game, and has really controlled that over the last few years too, with the massive serve and being able to get over the serve hiccups she's had, plus then being able to hit the ball as hard as she does on the forehand and still keeping it in. It's just amazing. She sometimes can hit harder and faster than some of the men out there on the tour.
Absolutely. I love her game because, she's kind of got that Serena power, and very few women can have the kind of game that she does. And I love it, though. She never, sometimes she'll do a drop shot or an angled shot, or she'll come in and do like a volley here and there, but it's all basically 98% power. And she will not change her game no matter what. And sometimes it's going to work against her like it did in the wind. But, sometimes it's like Nadal. If he didn't do that heavy top and that kind of that buggy whip, that was all he knew. This is who I am. That's what I'm going to do. And that's why it made him successful.
Oh, sure.
Same thing with Sabalenka. Without that power, without her playing this game, she's probably not as successful either. So keep doing what you're doing. That's what I would tell her.
Oh, sure.
And, on a few, just keep playing loose, keep playing free. And like you said, though, Andre Agassi did not like the wind either, but he had to deal with it throughout his career. Same with everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Wind, rain delays. Now, hopefully not as much at the majors, because we have the ability with the roof. I like the roof being open as long as it's not raining or sprinkling.
Oh, sure.
I want a natural match.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, at the year-end championships, that should be closed because, anywhere north is kind of chilly. So you pretty much have to do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then even with New York, with the U.S. Open, it does make it nice when you have a roof to be able to close, because more often than not in New York, it's has some rainy days during the first part of the U.S. Open in everything, and so they have the roof to close. But last year, I mean, I was there for Fan Appreciation Week last year, as you well know, which, coming in and getting the experience to go to Arthur Ashe Stadium and being able to see right off the bat Djokovic and Zverev hit the ball, practice and hitting the ball, and then right after that, Madison Keys ends up winning the Australian Open in 25. That, and then Katie Bolter, and then right after that, I got to see Sabalenka hitting the ball. I was like 5 rows from the court watching her hit that ball as hard as she does.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive too. And it's just what you're seeing there is a professional do their job. They are masters at their crafts, and that's hours and hours and hours mixed with some God-given ability. I believe to be that good, you have to have some God-given ability.
Oh, absolutely.
More so than the norm.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the hand-eye coordination alone.
Absolutely. And just to have the amount of hours put in and the amount of coaching, and some people, like, you look at where, like, Djokovic grew up, he didn't get good because of where he grew up. He was hitting in empty swimming pools. Same with Ana Ivanovic. He also grew up in a similar area. It's really cool to hear everyone's background and everyone's story, and that's why it's easy for those guys to root for. Just hearing their background, but it doesn't matter if you're on top, even if you're ranked 700th in the world, 1,000th in the world, 1,100th. You have an amazing talent, and you've put in hours and hours and hours.
Oh, absolutely.
Talent only goes so far if you don't put in that work, and these guys and women put in that work.
Oh, absolutely, they do. And then right after that, I saw Stefanos Tsitsipas hitting the ball, and it was like, that guy can flat out hit the ball, and that's amazing to myself that somebody like him that can hit the ball as hard as he can and as good as he can still hasn't risen as much in the rankings as what you would think that he would raise in the rankings.
Yeah, he's kind of fallen off. He was, what was it, 2 years ago? He was in 23, he was in the Australian Open final. 23, he also made the French Open final. Of course, losing to Djokovic. Djokovic was just on fire. I agree with you. His strokes are probably the prettiest out of all the men. Like if you go frame by frame by frame and just watch it, his backhand, his forehand, his movement.
Oh yeah,
really amazing. And he's a guy that I'm not going to write off. He's kind of in that Holger Rune category, that Casper Ruud, the Zverev category. He's in that Jack Draper's another guy that I kind of left out. I didn't mean to.
Sure.
But he's in that group. It's just the hard part is then with those guys, then there's Djokovic, and then away from everybody else in a different stratosphere is Sinner and Alcaraz.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's kind of that upper echelon between those two, and then just that little lower tier with everybody else in hitting that ball like that. And yeah, for sure, it was being able to see Tsitsipas hit the ball like he does. And I was just purely amazed at how he had the timing that he does. And I love his pure-handed, one-handed backhand. If I had half the timing he had on his backhand, I'd be kicking your butt on my backhand.
That would be tough, yeah. Going against that backhand, and not only does it look pretty, it's very effective, and
Yes.
you can look good, walk good, talk good, all that, but at the end of the day, people want to see results, and he's had it over years, and unfortunately, he just hasn't won that major, that Grand Slam championship, but I think it could happen one day.
Sure.
He just has to play really well. I don't know. I haven't followed a whole lot of just Tsitsipas, so I don't know if he's been injured. I don't know if he's just maybe he kind of had like a mental lapse where he just isn't as hungry, because that does happen over time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
When you have the schedule that they have, it's pretty much an 11-month schedule.
Oh, it is.
The only month that especially the top like 100, 150 get off is pretty much December.
Yeah, December. And then plus and even through that, they're still playing up until before the Australian Open. They have kind of fun exhibition stuff that they play.
That's probably the one time of the year where they have their December off. They got to spend some time with family, and friends over the holidays.
That's true.
Go back home, not the heavy travel schedule, and then they're doing the fan appreciation stuff and the exhibition stuff. That's where Djokovic and Murray and those guys, they get all mic'd up and it's funny, and then they raise money for great causes, which is awesome. Oh, it is.
It really is.
But and then that's what's funny too is like no major tournament has really started yet. Let's speak of the Australian, and then obviously this is my favorite time now is as soon as kind of like the clay court season hits, I know like here comes the French, and then right after that it's Wimbledon, and then right after that you got like Canada, Toronto, Montreal between the men and the women, they flip flop, and then you've got not Indy Wells, that's the spring. You've got Cincinnati, the Western and Southern. I love that tournament.
Oh, that tournament, all that.
And then here comes the U.S. Open.
Yes.
So it's funny how that works out where they have the Australian, then there's like a 3-4 month break, and then here comes slam all in a row. But it's the best time.
Oh, it is, because then that way you can just watch all the tennis you need to, and wherever they may be at. But most of those now, like Cincinnati, I think isn't Cincinnati now a 1,000 event at this time?
Yeah, it has been for a while. I don't know when it switched, but yes, it is. The United States is pretty lucky. Not only do they have a major in the U.S. Open, but they have 3 Masters. Of the 9, they have 3 of them. Indian Wells, Miami, and Cincinnati.
Yes. And beautiful tournaments, too. Beautiful.
All of them.
All of them are.
And not to sit there and say like USA is just superior, but they run very good tournaments. And same with like Europe, same with, you look at the Rome tournament. Oh my gosh, that is just, first of all, it's in a gorgeous location.
Oh yeah.
They do a fantastic job. Monte Carlo, again, just how could you not love it? And it's just there's so many good ones.
It is. And to be in Monte Carlo and overlooking the Mediterranean Sea when you're on that clay tennis court.
Yeah, I have actually my brother and sister-in-law are over there right now. They just went to Monaco like 2 days ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, then they're going by like Nice, and then they're going to spend a couple days in Mallorca, where Rafael Nadal's from.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna have to tell them to go.
Which, yeah, I'll have them send pictures
Yeah.
and stuff.
Have them send pictures of them on the tennis court there in Monte Carlo.
Well, I'll tell you what, if there's a Rafael Nadal tennis court in Mallorca, it's
Yes.
got to be red clay.
Yeah. Oh, it has to be. You know, it's amazing. And with that, you know, I've had the opportunity also, and that I've told you though, that I actually had an opportunity, and I had a phone interview with a guy that actually in Mason, Texas, population only 2,000, he has and made his own red clay tennis court in his backyard.
That's awesome. I wonder what the demand is to try to get on that court.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised that it would be some kind of a demand in to be able to try to get on that court. But not very many people really know about that, because Texas, Mason, Texas, a red clay tennis court. How in the heck?
Right. It's in a place you wouldn't think, but I will say this: in certain parts like Austin and other areas,
Mm-hmm.
it's a hotbed for tennis. You know, I
It
know
is.
Houston has a lot of really good tennis. But yeah, anybody within the area who's, you know, loves tennis, and that's the ultimate. When I drove by, I was in Mexico. I'm trying to think of the name of the city, but I drove by and there was a bunch of just the European red clay courts, and my mouth just about dropped open, because that's the last thing. I played on clay over here,
Yeah.
and I played on grass, and obviously hard court, indoor, outdoor, all that stuff. I haven't played on plexi cushion, but from a lot of people, they don't really like it. That's what the Australian Open's on.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit different feel. But European clay, for a guy like me who has never seen it, that's the ultimate court to play on right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and just amazing in itself to be able to think that. But of course, you know, with that's one of the goals is actually take a few days and then maybe make it to Mason, Texas, and hit on that clay court, because I've been invited to go play on it. So I get a hold of them and I can go do it.
There you go. I have to look up where Mason, Texas is.
Yeah, it's right somewhere not very far from San Antonio, about maybe I think an hour or so from San Antonio.
That seems reasonable.
You know, and everything, but that's kind of one of my go-to things of what I'd like to do is you know, be able to go and play on that clay. And probably would be even better is actually do the podcast from the clay court. That would be cool.
That'd be really cool, especially for the YouTubers, you know, to take a look at that video. And didn't you? Okay, so he built his own clay court in Texas.
Yeah.
So there's one, and then didn't he say, does the International Tennis Hall of Fame have some, or somebody else have some?
Well, actually, the West Side Tennis Club in Forest Hills, New York, had some red clay tennis courts, which
How many did they have? You know,
they had two for sure. Because then most of the other clay courts were taken out to make all the grass courts that they have now at the West Side Tennis Club there. But last year I did happen to go there because I had interviewed the historian gal from there. And then I told her I was coming, and she had me out for the day at Forest Hills looking at the facility.
that's awesome.
And
I was going to ask, is it a member only, or is it just reservations?
It is member only, and you know, which I think is actually, you have, in order to be considered to be a member, you have to have a member nominate you to the board. And and then I think that for the first initial to join the club, I think it's like $5,000 to join the club.
There's usually always a sign-up fee. And,
Yeah.
you know, they hit you, but then it's yearly after that.
Yeah, and then yearly after that, and then, you know, it's you know, I think it's like $300 or $500 a year for having that, or whatever, having that membership or something. I'll have to look for it, but that's really close to kind of how it is. but for me to be able to see actually Bud Collins' library that his widow gave to them, to be able to see his multicolored pants that he had worn at one time, and to be able to see his books and some of the things that he had collected over the years. Just amazing to be in that room, and then to be able to see the grass courts. But however, if you ever play at Westside Tennis Club, you got to wear tennis whites, and they actually do sell white tennis balls if you want to get nostalgic with it.
That would be cool. And I know, I don't know quite the year. I'm going to look that up actually, but Wimbledon was the last ones to get rid of those white balls. And I've never played with white balls. That would be interesting.
And I remember a couple of times that I did play with white balls back in the day, before the optic yellow ones came out, which was really, it was just common. We just played with the tennis balls and they were white. And playing on the old white cement tennis courts that I played out in my high school, they were white balls. So, it was kind of cool. And I actually saw one of the tennis guys that were talking on Tennis Channel 2 the other day had one of the old timers on, and then and you remember the tennis can balls that you had like a sardine can key that you undid the tennis balls can with.
Wow.
You had a little, like a sardine can, and then you tore the key off and then had the little lip, and then you put the little thing in the slot of the key, and then you'd wind it around, and then all of a sudden about almost halfway around, you'd hear the of the can releasing the pressure, and then you'd finish winding it up like a sardine can, and then there was your can of tennis balls.
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah, but
nostalgia for sure.
Oh, nostalgia for sure. And with that, you YouTubers out there, be sure and subscribe, and like my channel. For you podcasters out there, you're going to hear Racket of the Day here pretty soon. But if you do want to take a look at it, be sure and go to my tennis channel, Tennis Volley Talk. Subscribe, and comment. And anybody that wants to comment out there, please make a comment. What would you like hearing more over the phone interviews, or more history, or whatever the case may be. I like doing it because it's just fun to research all of that stuff too. With what I do with my podcast.
Absolutely. By the way, I found out the year, 1986.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I was 2 years old.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was like 18 or something like that. 16, 17, 18.
High school.
I was in in the late 70s, early 70s. So yeah, we still have the white tennis balls that we played with.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wish, like I said, I would like to use them sometime and see what the difference is rather than the fluorescent yellow on the eye.
Mm-hmm. And you realize that they did do experiments. They had an orange tennis ball that they had. That they played with orange, and then they had the mix orange and optic yellow that they mixed together, so if you could see it better or whatever. But they kind of experimented a year or two with that stuff.
I must have found out that fluorescent yellow is just the one.
Yeah, just the one. I actually have a can of pin tennis balls unopened, actually orange, all orange. So unopened can of pin tennis balls that are orange still.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it really is. It is really kind of cool. And with that, it's just it. And then right after that, like you said, Wimbledon coming up. Odds on favorite, you got to know the top 3 odds on favorite are going to be Alcaraz, Sinner, and Djokovic. And then, who knows after that, Draper or Rude or even Tsitsipas or Zverev, any of those guys after that, who could, that might actually pull an upset. You never know. And then on the women's side, you do have Sabalenka that really grass suits her so good. But is she going to be able to get used to the grass? Or is Coco going to get used to the grass? There are a certain amount of grass players out there that just like like grass anyway, be it the men or women's side that just can play on grass out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the men, you hit the nail on the head. It's definitely the big three, as we mentioned before. It's Alcaraz. I think it's his to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Sinner. I have to give him the nod because he's back. He's 2-time defending champion, back to back, and Sinner hasn't even gotten to the final there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I say yet because he's going to. It's just a matter of which year.
Yeah, what year? What year is he going to make a final then too?
And Djokovic last year was very impressive. He got to the finals only 1 month removed from knee surgery.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Amazing. So I have to put him third. And then I think fourth, I would put a guy like Jack Draper. He's a lefty. He got that, the power. He'll have home crowd support.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would be fourth right now. And he had a quiet clay court season.
Mm-hmm.
But
he did.
Before that, he had a loud hard court season.
Oh, he had a wonderful hard court season.
Absolutely, he did.
And plus, yeah, and his game has just come along so amazing, though. And then he actually won one of the I think one of the 1,000 events or 250 event or 500 event. He actually won that one too. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think he did win 2 tournaments there and played very well. That was definitely his breakthrough season. We all knew about him before that, but to go through and beat some of the guys that he beat, pretty impressive. And then, like I said, he's got the power. His game's a little different, and I think it'll translate beautifully on grass. And then to have that home crowd support, that's huge. For the women's side, though, we have not. I mean, it's been all over the place. We haven't had a repeat champion since Serena in 15-16.
Yeah, so, it's like
you don't know, who knows who the favorite is now.
Oh, that's true. That's true. And then, like I said, that there's a few choice women out there that can play on grass.
Yes.
Well, like Swiatek, she usually is pretty good when she comes in and can play on grass. Sabalenka can, but some of the others, they seem a lot more lost on grass than anything.
Yeah, and it's hard because I wish that say the grass court season was another 2, 3, 4 weeks longer because you have hard court seasons are very long. You have the opening of the year, down in January, down in Australia and New Zealand, and then in the springtime, you come here to the States and you have Indian Wells, you have Miami. So there's a lot of hard court tournaments. Then clay is pretty long. If you look at how many clay court tournaments you could actually play in, there's several. You can play in probably up to 4 or 5 just in the tune-up, just to get to the Roland Garros, to the French Open, Roland Garros. I know Nadal, back in his prime when he was younger, he would play as many as he could. That was his service. Some pull out, just to kind of get that extra rest, which I totally understand. But when you go to grass, there's really not that many options, and it's only back in the day it used to be about a month long, and that includes England.
Yeah, that's true. And
you would have Queen's Club, you'd have Gary Weber, and then you would have Wimbledon. Literally, you'd pick one of where are you going to do your tune-up tournament, and then you go right to Wimbledon.
Oh yeah, and now it's not only that between the French and Wimbledon, they have the grass court tennis season in a way, but it's not specifically geared that you're going to be in England or in London doing them. You're going to be in Hamburg. You're going to be someplace in France. And still playing on grass. And then you have to, those guys that do that, they then have to, airfare to London before Wimbledon, and then, start Wimbledon the first week that it starts.
Yeah, and that's why, I think, not that I'm trying to make excuses for the women, but maybe that's part of the reason why is because they don't really play a whole lot on grass, that there has been one dominant force. You look at, we've had, looking back, we've had 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 different champions over the last 8, and 7 first-time champions over the last in that other one that it was because of COVID, there wasn't any. So,
yeah, that's right. That's right.
pretty cool. So, where the French Open's kind of more, that's been more predictable. Obviously Nadal with his 14 and Djokovic has 3 and Alcaraz now repeat champion and Swiatek has 3 or 4 of them already. So
yeah.
That's been a little more predictable.
It has.
Wimbledon, we'll see what happens. I want to see both sides of the draw and just let it play it out.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Let it see what happens here. And then as we go, kind of come along, and as we had talked before, I have something out there for everybody that guess the player of who this player might be, and give you a little bit of hints out there. He played pro, and he was pro from 82 to 95 and reached a career high ranking of number 4 in 1990.
The only one that comes to mind is Brad Gilbert.
Yeah, and you're actually right. It is Brad Gilbert.
Hey, there we go. I got one right.
Amazing. How in the heck did you do that? Well, probably 82, huh?
It was kind of the time frame, and I knew that Gilbert got to number 4 in the world, and I was watching a documentary.
Okay.
They were trying to pair Andre up with him, like, hey, that guy's a hard worker. He didn't rely on certain things just to get him to number 4.
Yeah.
He was like a hard work, so he knows what he's doing. That's why they kind of paired him up.
Yeah.
That always stuck with me, and I watched a tournament where Brad Gilbert got to the final against Pete Sampras in like the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And Brad Gilbert was still trying to play like the old like mid 80s game.
Mm-hmm.
And Pete was just blasting him around the court.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
It looked unfair.
Oh, it did. But Gilbert did play McEnroe and beat McEnroe. McEnroe just was fit to be tied with Gilbert's game that he had back then.
Yeah, for sure. And Brad beat some big names, and he did win a bronze medal, and he did get to number 4 in the world, and he did some pretty amazing things. So it was just in that match. I think it was kind of towards the tail end of Brad's career, and it was kind of a prime Sampras, and he made a lot of people look silly.
Oh, he did. Winning the Olympic bronze in Seoul, and then went on to coaching the likes of Agassi from 94 to 2003 and helping him win the Grand Slam titles that he did and helping Agassi win the gold. And he coached also Andy Roddick to the U.S. Open title in 2003. So he's had, but Brad Gilbert, if that is somebody that I would love to talk to, and just on tennis knowledge alone of what he's had tennis knowledge over his years of playing. And I actually did see Brad Gilbert when I lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and saw the Bank of Oklahoma tennis tournament. He did win that one year too. And I did get to see him play. He beat Peter Lundgren is who he beat at the Bank of Oklahoma tournament.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's
another solid win for Brad.
Yeah, beat Lundgren 6-7, 6-3, 7-6 3 sets there in Tulsa. But
that's pretty awesome.
I've had the opportunity through it. I mean, the Bank of Oklahoma was held like 10 years there in Tulsa. As the first couple 3 years, it was an ATP tournament, and actually had a full draw of an ATP tournament that came through there, men and women that played, and it was just amazing just to be able to see. And then the court that they had, a little nice like 3,000 seat court that you got to be up close. No matter where you sat in that stadium, you had a good seat, no matter where.
Sure. I believe that. You see the stuff you get in Oklahoma that you just like Minnesota. I wish that they'd host a tournament one day, but they really can't. It's just it's not in the cards.
Not in the cards. I know. And with getting the sponsors to be able to put something like that on too is amazing. That would be amazing to have something like that. But the guy that put it together was Jack Timer. I actually interviewed him too, which was really a great interview. But he was responsible for getting the sponsors. And by all rights, Tulsa, Oklahoma, to have that many tennis pros, they had no right to have that, but they did. They got them, and they came to Tulsa and played in the Bank of Oklahoma tournament.
Oh wow, that's really cool. That's pretty neat that you got to experience that. And
yeah.
I didn't grow up with that or have anything close by, but still fell in love with the game. I was going to say one thing. When you talked about Brad Gilbert was with Andre Agassi and, really helped his career.
Yeah.
He did the same for Roddick in 03. The summer of 03, some people forget, not only did Andy Roddick win the U.S. Open, but he also won the Canada Open.
Yes.
He also won Cincinnati, and then he won the U.S. Open. So he won all three, which I don't know how many times that's been done, but it's very, very.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And now,
so I wish Gilbert had stayed with. I wonder what would have happened if Gilbert had stayed with Roddick.
Oh, I know.
Obviously, Federer was most people's kryptonite.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I think Roddick has more than one slam, but you just never know.
You never know. Yeah, you never know. But of course, Roddick then coming across. Then, as he came across, then he started coming across. Then the ones that were then the three for a decade: Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, and that he did not fare well with those guys very well.
Yeah, it's too bad. He had the serve and forehand, but unfortunately, that return of serve and backhand were always his weakness. Yeah, that's right. It's a craziness there. But as all things go, I have the racket of the week that I'm going to kind of cover with you. Now, that racket of the week, it's also a Spalding racket today, and it's actually called the Challenge Cup Pro. And actually, this is probably around about the 1960s to 1970 era racket here. But however, one of the first ventures into the oversized bow, so you'd have a bigger hitting surface on this particular racket here. And I do like the colors because it's actually made oversized bow, and then it's handcrafted of French white ash in Belgium. And so that's what it's made of. And it has some brilliant colors on it too. The red, and it has kind of red stripe. It kind of has the red stripe like you would see the old Federer racket, the Pro that he had, but it only has it on one side, but it's red, has black stripes on the one side, has a cloth ring around the head of the racket here too. Spalding is in red over the white, and then it has the Pro Challenge Cup, and that's all black and red stripes on the throat of the racket here, and the Challenge Cup Pro. Really an interesting racket because A.G. Spalding was actually founded in 1876 when Spalding was actually founded, and it was actually founded by Albert Goodwill Spalding and his brother Walter. Started the sporting goods store in Chicago, of all places. Now, Albert Spalding, of all things, he was also a pitcher and a manager in baseball during that time too. But he also had a manufacturing company in Chicopee, Massachusetts, which then, in its own right, did make baseball uniforms for the baseball teams out there during the day too, during the time of that time. So, but then he decided with his brother to go to Chicago, and they opened up the Spalding Sporting Goods store, and that's how Spalding became more and less kind of involved within tennis too. Now, they began selling or importing tennis rackets in 1878 is when they started importing tennis rackets, becoming one of the first American lawn tennis dealers in the U.S., distributing them importing them from overseas and then selling them in the U.S.
And then later on in 1905, they then designed their own racket. And then in 1905, they decided to then sell them and market them within the U.S. and also overseas, the rackets being produced in the U.S. and overseas at that time, whenever they decided to, in 1905, make their own designer racket, so then they could get into the American market instead of, being the importer of foreign made rackets. So that's kind of out. But this one, like I said, it's probably, late mid 50s to the 70s racket, and the venture into the first oversized racket itself, oversized bow racket, which really is. And they did have another one that they tried, which was the Stan Smith Wilson, that they did an oversized head on that racket too. But nobody really caught on with the oversized overhead racket until Prince came along with their size racket, and everybody liked that because it was a way bigger hitting head though too. But the racket itself was really a nice racket still, very straight. You could probably even hit the ball with this racket still. And it wouldn't be too bad really. It wouldn't have the power, but it does have a bigger hitting surface, which is better than the old wood rackets back in the day of hitting the racket. But that's the racket of the week there for you. So you kind of learned something then too, a little bit about Spalding and something about the racket that they had, that they did.
That's cool to go back in time like that. And I don't know, how many more do you have left to do of those rackets?
Well, I got at least 150 or so or more.
Wow.
And I try to, like I said, I try to keep it within the age of the rackets, and I try to keep it with, I got to probably go through those and find out the actual what they used to use. And you see the older rackets that have from the last mainstring and the last top mainstring, you see the stringing in between the rackets, extra string across. They use that string they used for a racket dampener in a way, for a dampener for, like they have dampeners in rackets now. That's
pretty cool.
They'd use that for dampeners. And then also because it had the way they tied it, you had smooth side on one side and kind of knots on the other side, that sometimes you'd spin it and go smooth or knots. And so you spin it, and then if it was knots, then it was the rough side of that particular little string that went across the bottom of the racket and the top of the racket.
Huh.
So yeah,
innovative.
Yeah, very innovative back then. So I still have a lot of those to go through in order to get for the age of the racket per se, and get that, because those are older rackets then. This one just happened to be a little newer racket, but still the Spalding name of the racket itself too. So, and then, with that too, there's a guy I did talk to that actually now still hits with old wood rackets. And he plays with the Rosignol racket. And some of those rackets are really pretty rackets too. And I actually got to hit with him a couple of Rosignol rackets over at Rogers Tennis Club, actually. And he goes out and hits with Scott Larson with the old wood tennis rackets.
How does the ball come off that racket?
The ball comes off the wood rackets if you're concentrating on it and you hit it solid and in the middle of the racket, the ball will come off fairly decent. And if you have the right stroke and you hit it right, the ball's going to go deep and hit with topspin. And it does have some pretty good power with it. Not as good as the power as what we have now, but still it has fairly decent power with the old wood rackets.
That's really cool. Stepping back in time and, experiencing what they had to go through and what they had back then. It's cool.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and I love doing that. Love this aspect of passing this history to people. And like you, I just like doing and giving you the history of the racket manufacturer, of who they are and what that manufacturer did, and how old. And just to imagine the fact that they started importing tennis rackets in 1878 to actually import them from overseas, from Belgium and places of that nature, in order to then sell them in the U.S. market. And then later on, 1905, then they come up with their own racket design. And then they kind of got into the U.S. market with the U.S. racket they made, then still having the imported rackets that they imported, and then imported the U.S. racket made overseas too, to actually do it that way. And that happened in 1905. Just amazing to learn anything like that.
Pre-World War I.
Yes.
Yeah, you just put yourself back in that time frame.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty cool.
It is, and it's just amazing how the game of tennis and when it started. And actually, that it started in the Britain, UK, over in that area. It actually started as early as the 1700s is when it started.
Sure.
Because of with the guy with the art dealer book guy that has tennis books from as early as 1700. So, which I'll probably go to. I'm going to be staying in Manhattan at the YMCA this time. So, coming into LaGuardia for the U.S. Open Fan Appreciation Week this year. So, it'll be kind of fun. It'll be fun to be able to find and do.
Absolutely.
And to maybe get a picture or two of a tennis book that says 1700s, wow, first edition, and wow, amazing. And they do have a couple of real old ones that they do have for sale and who knows, I might come back with a really old tennis book. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. That would be great.
It would be. So, with that, it's just so wonderful to be able to talk tennis and have this knowledge with you too, to know and be associated with this. And I've always loved being able to talk to you, because you and I talk such good tennis together, with knowing the tennis that we do, that I know and that and we can just kind of mesh it together. It just makes it so much more great of an interview with somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to talk about something you love and you're passionate about. I've always said that. So it's we mesh good together, and it's really cool. Still learning, and I'm always trying to learn, especially even if you think you know it all, you don't. And my brain, especially with tennis, is like a sponge. So I want to suck up everything that I can.
Oh, I know. And then, because you've actually gotten so much exponentially better at your ground strokes now, so much more consistent. And for whatever reason, even like when we played just this last week, it was just like my mind is just like, I see you hit the ball. I know you're going to go where you're going to go, but my feet just don't want to move there. Well, maybe because I just don't want to get so tired trying to get your shots because you're running me ragged.
Well, that's another thing too. I know when people are exhausted, especially physically, the first thing they go in tennis is the quick movement of their feet and that first quick step. So if I ran you ragged around the court, then I did my job.
You did.
It makes it easier for me.
Yeah, it does make it easier for you. And for whatever reason, it's just that my mind just was so slow that day, because you had that inside out forehand that I hit it in easy, just boom, right down the line in the forehand, inside out. I'm going, what? Why can I not just go over there? I know you're going to go there, and you hit it there. And my head, my feet, just don't want to move. My head says it's there, but it's not moving.
Well, I think, for anybody watching this, what he's talking about is I like to go down, we're both right-handed hitters, and I like to go down the line, towards your backhand. But I think what people get stuck in their brain is they always do like a cross-court game. So I think maybe subconsciously you feel that if I'm setting up to do my inside out forehand and go down the line and you take a step or two over and you start to cheat, then I can just whip it back cross court and it's wide open.
Yeah. And then I'm just stuck in the middle watching it go down the line in the backhand or an inside out forehand down the line. I'm going, okay, I'm in the middle. You can hit it here.
That's the worst feeling in the world, is watching a ball go
I know.
the line,
I know.
in, and there's nothing you can do
Yeah,
about it.
nothing. I mean, I just like my, of course, then probably since I haven't played in 6-8 weeks solid to be able to get out there and really have timing or anything. That's why it's just kind of been like so hard to read some of those shots too. Of course, then it could be.
Yeah. With anybody out there, I don't care if you're a 5.0 player, if you're a college player, if you're a former ATP pro, if you quit playing the game of tennis due to an injury for, a good 2 months, it takes a while to come back and fully get your timing down, muscles you haven't used, your lungs, like just a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I did. And I felt it. I mean, I was like, not like last year, got out in a hot, humid 90-degree day. And it was like, I was out there with you hitting the ball back and forth for 2.5, almost 3 hours.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, you did great.
And now it's just, but then again, I still think that I still have a fairly decent game with my strokes, except my backhand. I need to start working on the timing of my backhand. I just felt off on that. But my forehand tends to start coming around a little bit better. At least it felt a little better as the day went on the other day.
Absolutely. And with most players, I think that's the shot that's going to come back the quickest, is probably the forehand. Very few, like when I was younger, my backhand was actually my better shot, probably just because I had a little bit more control over it. But, now I just know that you want to tin with your backhand, so I'll just keep attacking that.
Yeah. How dare you? How dare you?
I'm just kidding.
So, but yeah, no, it's just always a pleasure being able to have you on my tennis podcast. And, hopefully, with that, I appreciate it. And always such a pleasure being able to talk tennis with you. And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot more days that you're going to be guessing who I'm talking about. And also a lot more tennis talk on the podcast whenever I can get you up and have you come up and talk.
Absolutely. Whenever it works out, I have 5 kids, and when you've got 2 boys in baseball and a daughter in softball and another one in golf, it's just, time gets crazy sometimes. Baseball and softball will be ending within the next 2 to 3 weeks, so that'll be a little relief. But then football starts up, so then I'll have 3 in that and then 1 in volleyball. So
yeah. So busy kind of guy, but
busy kind of guy. Any chance I get though to talk tennis with you it's great. And thanks for having me on your podcast. And anytime we can make it work, obviously I'll be here. Okay.
Well, that sounds very good. And then we'll get out in the court again sometime soon.
Very soon.
All right. Thank you again, Rob, for being on my tennis podcast, and have a great day.
Thanks. You too, Brian.
All right. Bye.
Take care.
Bye. There you have it. It was a great interview. You podcasters out there, like, subscribe, and comment. What do you like on the podcast, for the podcast? And also, you podcasters out there, if you like if you want to see what I was talking about with the racket of the week, be sure and let me know. And I'll be go to my tennis podcast, Tennis Volley Talk on YouTube. So everybody, thank you for letting me talk tennis with my friend Rob here today, and hope you did like it. And everybody out there, keep playing and hitting that ball. And I will talk to you next week. Thank you. Have a good week.